What's up, Grassroots World? I'm Chris Logan.
I'm Ernie Barber.
And we are the Flagrant 2. Coach, what's going on, man?
Hey, man, just a lot of conversations, a lot of things going on. Ready to talk some basketball, get into a little bit of 5A, talk a little bit from this last week on big games. We're getting down the stretch. We're down to the last 5-6 games of the stretch of the year. So, it's interesting to see how everything's shaping up and who's going to step up and who's not. So, seedings are coming and, players are stepping up and some, a lot of things going on, man. A lot to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, 2A, 3A, 4A, it's already set now as far as the playoffs.
Yeah.
So they haven't been released yet, but the rankings no longer matter anymore. It's set. 5A and 6A, it's district standings, so that'll come here at the end of the season.
Yep.
And then, as we're sitting here, there are breaking news from the OSSAA, and we'll hop into that here in a little bit. That kind of might shake up the 4A.
Oh, yeah, I think it definitely is going to shake up the 4A.
We'll hop into that here in a little bit, but, I mean, so much going on. This is that time of the year where the in-season tournaments end, but now we're getting down to the nitty-gritty of the games that matter in 5A and 6A especially. And then in the others, when we get these pairings and the groupings come out, it'll be interesting to see where some of these teams are going.
Yeah, I think the big thing with the lower classes is just trying to figure out, some of those seedings that, who we've got our favorites in those classes of – we've got some of our favorites in those classes being the first and second. But then you get into that third and fourth team, and can they slip into that number 2 spot? Because a lot of those schools, one of the schools are usually dominant, right? So you're Dale, for instance, in 2A. I mean, I think it's fairly clear Dale is a big favorite in 2A. But who's going to meet them? Pecola obviously we think that's probably
are they undefeated still?
They're undefeated.
Pecola's undefeated.
Yeah, they're
right?
undefeated.
Yeah.
So, and I think they've got 2 first-place votes, if I remember correctly. I was looking at this morning. But the point is that, does somebody come in and beat Pecola, right? Who would that be, depending on the seeding and how that plays out?
Yeah.
That's all part of that. That's the interesting piece. But I think, not that Dale can't be beat, because people can beat anybody on any given day, but I find it very difficult in 2A. They're just so difficult. I don't know that anyone's going to beat them, but who's going to be the other team to meet them in the finals? That's kind of where I think it gets interesting when you get into the smaller classes.
And I think we mentioned it before. I mean, Code at Terrell, Epicola, that's just the big mismatch into it.
Yeah.
He's a mismatch. He'd be a mismatch in any level in Oklahoma, first of all, with his size and speed. I mean, he's 6'9", but moves like a guard. I mean, he's going to be the guy that causes the matchup nightmare. And Garrett Scott is playing really well right now. So they got that 1-2 punch.
Hirogi right there.
Yeah, it's just will the others can the others step up, because we know Dale's will.
Yeah, I mean, you got a rotation of guys that are going to come in and make an impact and play. So, the ball moves. A lot of guys can knock down shots. Dayton creates space for himself and everyone else on the team. So it's going to be interesting. But that's where the seeding comes in, and it's always kind of fun to watch to see who comes in, and seeds himself behind the favorites to vie for that spot or one of those spots. So
yeah, and then we're going to go right into it like we normally do on these weekly recaps. We try to keep you guys, of what's going on and keep everybody in tune to what happened over the last week, because that's what, really this is what this is that it keeps everybody up to date. It's your one-stop shop. You don't need to go anywhere else but tune into the Flagrant 2 and listen and get your basketball fix in. That was 2A. I caught a 3A game on Friday since our last podcast, and that was Millwood and Cassia Hall.
Yep.
Cassia Hall, one of the hottest teams in the state right now.
Yep.
I mean, the final rankings, they finished at 3, and one was who was in 3A? OCS was 1.
OCS, yeah.
And then Victory was 2, and Cassia Hall just beats Victory. Now, it won't matter as far as that because the rankings were already set.
Yes.
But it does matter in the realm of confidence and who's playing really well right now.
Which is why we have districts in 5A and 6A.
Yeah, which is going to be different. And we'll get into that when we talk a little bit more about that, because I'm not a fan. I like the one and done in the first round.
I do too.
I think
I do too.
everything is on the line.
Correct.
You lose, you go home. Now you're like, I lose, I get another game.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of that, but it is what it is.
I agree.
So I understand why they did it. But Millwood Cassia Hall was good. Good game. Isaiah Wilkes still out, so for Millwood, but they did get Zon Williams back. So he had a monster game in that game. But Cassia Hall is a lot of people's sleeper pick right now in 3A. They are not a big team. They are guard loaded, but the guards can go, and they're very young. The fact that they start 2 freshmen on a team that's a top 2 team probably.
Yeah, what's that going to look like in the next couple of years?
It's going to look like something because we mentioned some of those freshmen in a couple episodes ago when we listed the top ones with Dallas Lowe. Dallas Lowe, is really one of the quicker guards. He's Isaiah Wilkes might be the fastest guard, but he's smaller in stature.
Millwood needs him. Yeah,
Dallas is kind of long. He's like a 6'2". He's real long, but he is quick. He knows he blows by anybody, and he's really good against the rim. He did a great job getting to the line in that game. He didn't shoot it from the perimeter. It's not that he didn't miss. He just used his quickness. He was just like, I can get by anybody, and I liked him. Memphis Duffy, who I have mentioned a few times on here. That's a freshman. That's what a freshman looks like when they're well built. He's about 6'2", like 190. I mean, he's a well built kid.
You don't see kids like that very
much. No. And he's and I said it the other day. He's known for his 3-point shooting, but he did a great job of getting to the rim in that game. And a matter of fact, I think 2 nights later he won the game against Victory. He hit the game-winning shot. So he's had a great week. Jason Kim, the junior, 6'4.5". Hit some big shots in that game because Millwood had the lead for a lot of that game.
He's a special player. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, Jason can play. Jason, high academic kid. Definitely see Ivy League schools getting in on him or something like that. He's a kid. Don't look at level. Could be a D3 All-American type kid. Go somewhere like that.
Well, some of the best schools in America are D3 schools, literal education schools.
High academic schools.
Yes.
So depending on what you do, he'd be a perfect candidate for coaches listening for that. But any Ivy League school or schools that value high education, that's going to be one of your guys. But Jason hit some huge shots in that game in the second half when they were down to bring them back. For Millwood, I really liked Zon Williams coming back, did a lot of everything, was hitting shots from all over, attacking the rim.
Einabel's getting some first place votes too in that class in 3A.
They're a definite up and comer. I mean, they've had a great season. But back to Millwood, Braylon Bradshaw, a freshman for them. He's a post player. Mm-hmm. He really surprised me with his physicality they play with. But he's an excellent passer out of the post. That's what I noticed about him. Is like he has some nice little footwork down there, and he gets some nice moves. He's an undersized big. He's 6'4"-ish, but he uses
gets you a tough bucket when you need
a tough bucket. But I love the way he had a no look pass behind, like with his back to the basket. And we were talking about that. You were last week about bigs getting down there and playing with their back to the basket, and he showed me some nice stuff. He's a definite person to watch out for. Amari Barrett had a good game for Millwood. Cassia Hall pulled out the win, and they're really killing it right now. Definitely
14-2 on the season. Big win against Okmulgee, 71-50. Mm-hmm. Victory Christian beat them 67-63. That's a huge win.
Earlier, yep.
And then the close win against Millwood, 68-60 in a W there. Lincoln Christian before that, 45-42. So they're winning these tight games and these close games come tournament time. That's a good sign when you're going into the tournament time, being able to get big wins. On the road at Millwood. The Victory Christian was at home. Okmulgee was at Okmulgee, so
that's their last game, right? Yeah. Then they're backloaded. They were one of those teams, we talked about them. They barely played any games up until Christmas.
Yes.
And then they're backloaded with a lot of their games. So that's going to be valuable for those youngsters to come up, those freshmen. But they also have 2 twin seniors, Drake and Daniel Jarrett, who really are tough kids. They're not big in stature, but they always seem to be in the right place, making big time plays. They play way bigger than their size. I like those kids, and they give a little bit of senior leadership to the team. And then and so with those youngsters, Dallas Lowe and Memphis Duffy are going to be a scary, scary combination for the next 3.5 years. You know. So,
oh yes, so maybe one of the best in the state.
Oh, absolutely. Cassia Hall could run 3A in the next few years.
Yep.
I mean, for sure. Depending on if they don't get moved out of that, you never know anymore in Oklahoma. Lee Mayberry's done a great job with that program for sure. They're definitely on the come up. And I know that you attended a game last night, correct?
Yeah, I watched OCS and CCS play. I think Carson Jones was out with an ankle sprain. It was I wasn't sure that was the case. He came walking out in street clothes, so I was like, okay, well, that's going to change the dynamics a little bit of the game, and it did a little bit. But I think when you look at it, Luke Gray, they didn't have anyone that could really effectively stop him. He could get in the paint and pretty much do what he wanted to.
Yeah.
He just even stepped out and knocked down a three. He was playing pretty confident last night. First half, they were well in control in the first half, and then one of my guys stepped up, and Destin Edwards came, storming back the second half and knocked down a bunch of threes.
Yeah.
So I want to give another shout out too for OCS. Connor Owens, that kid knocked down, I don't know if it's 5 or 6 threes. I can't recall exactly, but there were a lot of them, and they were in succession there in the first half, and then a few in the second half. But man, he shot the ball well, and in Carson's absence, he definitely stepped up and played big for them. And I mean, when you knock that many shots down, that's certainly, anything that you might have gotten from Carson. Not that they didn't need him; it's always extra nice to have a player like himself. But yeah, he was able to knock down some big shots last night, and they ended up winning by, I think, 16 was the final. And so a big win for OCS going into CCS late in the season. I wasn't necessarily surprised because defensively I thought CCS would struggle to stop Luke. Luke is just a force in 3A in the middle. I mean, it's just there's nobody that can combat that.
Not many teams in the state can have anybody to defend him.
I mean, they were in a zone and doubling him up, and when they would double him up, he'd kick it out. I mean, The good thing about Luke is that Luke knows when to move the basketball and when to be aggressive, and so he did that last night. And Connor was able to knock down shots, and it really they had things going. So the last couple minutes pulled the starters, and the other guys got some opportunities. I'm going to give a shout out to OCS's bench too. Those guys have a good time. I sat right behind their bench.
Yeah.
And those guys, they have a lot of little cheers that they do and sayings that they do when they hit free throws. They have a lot of fun.
Yeah, a lot of team camaraderie.
Yeah, that's really cool. I mean,
big.
Yeah, I mean when guys that may not get in the game much, but they're totally clued into the guys on the floor and what's going on, and they're rooting them on, and the culture of that team is in a good place. And it's good to see that.
Hopefully they get Carson Jones back healthy because they will need him in the playoffs.
Yeah, that's one of the questions I have, and one of the things I didn't ask Marty last night, Carson's father, but I meant to ask him, the status of that, but I didn't get that information. I was talking to other people. So, DM me, Marty, and let us know what the status is on Carson's ankle. Certainly want to know. Hope he's okay, and hope he gets to participate. So.
Yeah, and Luke is one of those kids that we commonly talk about in Oklahoma. Like, it doesn't make sense, and I'm talking about from a recruiting standpoint or a scouting standpoint. It doesn't make sense why some of these in-state schools haven't offered him. Specifically Tulsa and Oral Roberts. They should be on him. Mm-hmm. I mean, the thing about Luke is he's polished with his back to the basket, which is what you were talking about last week, wanting to see. But he can step out to the three-point line and knock it down at a high level. I mean, he's well-balanced in all phases of the game.
Yeah, he's strong, too. He's got good footwork.
Yeah.
He's aggressive. He plays defense. I mean, he does a lot of things well. Great in the classroom. He does all. I mean, he's a great kid. I think that's the other thing. UCO was at the game last night. I know they were there probably recruiting him.
Yeah.
So it's not that no schools were there, but I agree with you that, in terms of D1 schools, Tulsa's and ORU's schools,
they should be in on him. I think that he may make them regret that down the line. Now he has some he obviously has some offers off the top of my head. Cal Poly has offered him. Liberty has offered him. He's got some others, but I could see Liberty wouldn't be a bad place for him.
No,
Luke could go to Liberty and really be a big part of that program and do some great things.
Yeah,
for
especially
them.
this versatility. I mean, when you look at Liberty, the Patriot League, there a lot of shooting goes on and a lot of ball movement.
Yep.
It would fit him well. It would be a situation where it's kind of similar to what he's used to system-wise playing.
Yep.
So, yeah, that could be a really good fit. And academically, it's a great school, too.
Yeah.
So
Luke Gray may be one of those kids where we say here in 2 years, like, why didn't he stay in it? Why didn't a home school come and get him? But hey, that's the nature of the beast. But anyways, great kid, great player. And then Destin Edwards, I mean, I mentioned him last week when we were talking about point guards, regardless of class. Destin is one of those kids that kind of sometimes gets overlooked because of size, but athleticism-wise, he's a very good athlete, underrated athlete.
Yes.
Top-level shooter. When I identified Destin in middle school, his skill set was so far advanced to me from all the other kids around him that's what jumped off the page, and we're now starting to see that come to fruition. Some of the stuff he was doing last night, I was watching it I watched it on a replay today. I mean, some of his pump fakes off the three-point line and the way he gets the people to bite and they go flying by and steps in. I reached out to his dad, told him looked a little bit Steph Curry-like, the little threes he takes, the difficulty on them, but the form is there and it's perfect. It's like
it's repeatable. It's over and over again. Right hand, left hand. Stop off the dribble. He does everything well in terms of shooting and ball handling. Skill-wise, I would argue his skills are as good as anybody's in the state as far as guard play skills.
Absolutely.
And as far as the shooting, it's next level. I mean, it's just really, really good. And I look and bringing him onto the program or onto our program during spring and summer ball. I wanted a player that had skills like very similar to my son's skills, and I look because there's certain attributes I look for, and he possessed all of those skills. And I know Destin and my son had worked out together when Destin was younger, and Evan told me, look, this kid's really good. He's going to be really, really good, Ted.
No, he's going to be one of the best point guards in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
He is. I mean, he's already there. It's like I said, it's just because sometimes people look at size first, and they let that be and I'm saying you got to look at the skill set and project at what it's going to be here. He's definitely going to be in that top conversation as one of the top point guards, and he's already making huge strides in his he's only a sophomore.
Yeah, and here's the other thing
year
that I would say too, and this is one of the things I'd say to the other players out there, is if you watch film on Dustin, he tries as hard to get his teammates open, and he's extremely unselfish.
Yeah.
There were times last night in the first half he didn't do a whole lot in the first half. A lot of that came in the second half.
Yeah.
In the first half, he basically was passing, cutting, moving without the ball, and setting a lot of screens.
Yeah.
I was watching what he was doing without the ball as opposed to, I know the kid can flat out stroke it. You got a strap, but what does he do? He was doing that in the first half, and sometimes in a team that he plays on, they need him to score more. Right, so I think in the second half he realized, okay, if we're going to have any chance of winning, I've got to shoot the basketball and score the basketball. Yeah. So he's a very, very smart player, but he's very unselfish, and his skills are so good that and his passing ability is just amazing. His shooting is great, and his passing is just as good as his shooting.
Yeah, and kids like him or players like him, that's how it normally goes. When they're so unselfish and they're such elite passers, they tend to. That's their number one thing that they fall back on until they realize, wait a minute, I'm also the best option on offense.
Yes.
I sometimes have to be, the green light is on and I'm the shooter. I got to go get buckets as well.
Yep.
And so for me, with him, that's what I've been waiting on is when does that part of his game step up, and he's now gotten to that point where he's starting to take over games. And I put it out on Twitter a month or so ago. I said something like he's starting to realize he's option one on scoring. He gets his guys involved, and even like we had Trey Slade on here, and he was talking about one of the biggest skills is what you do away from the ball, not when you have it. And that's what he does a great job of, is moving without the basketball.
Yeah, setting screens, because a lot of times
Never
you get open.
Still.
Yeah, he gets open, and a lot of guards, and you look at the best guards in the state, you look at the Trambles, you look at the Cal Furnishes, you look at Destin. these guys set screens, they get their teammates open, but when you set that screen, guess what? You pop.
Yeah.
And that's when you're wide open. And Cal makes a living sometimes. I mean, he can dribble, penetrate, get in the paint, get paint touches along with Keontae. But what they do without the ball and then getting open and getting another opportunity offensively, that's what gets you to that next level and ultimately the D1 level. And I firmly believe both of those players will end up there.
Yeah, I mean, that's when we were talking about last week when we were talking about point guards. There's a ton of people that play that position. We were trying to give some ones that are true point guards.
Correct.
Where it's pass first, but it's what they do other than that. Then there's some of them scoring, shooting, whatever it is that makes them such well-rounded point guards and complete players.
Yeah, that's the other thing, too. And I'll give a shout-out to some other guys that, in Union's got – he's that point guard is special too. There's a bunch of point guards in the state of Oklahoma that deserve shout outs. I can't give them all.
Oh,
but
yeah, definitely.
I mean,
a lot of guards in Oklahoma.
Yeah, a lot of guards in general. I mean, that's we don't have a lot of guys that are 6'8" and taller, but
no.
But guard play in Oklahoma, there's plenty of guys out there that are really, really good. So,
and then I just wanted to go to, we always try to hit the games we attended in person first. Last night, you were at OCS, CCS. I was at Owasso versus Edmond Memorial, which is a district game. A lot on the line there.
Yes.
Great atmosphere. The Edmond Memorial fans were rabid last night.
The student section comes out for Memorial.
Yeah, they were trying to get into to Jalen and Jax and those guys. They were trying their best. In the end, it didn't work out so well, but they definitely tried.
They've been in bigger environments than that before. And don't get me wrong, going to Edmond and playing an Edmond Memorial game with the student section, they've always been rowdy and a lot of fun. They get after the players on the other team because I've experienced it myself, and it's pretty cool.
It was a great atmosphere, and it was one of those games where Owasso looked to be in firm control for a lot of that game until late in there, and Edmond Memorial made a run. Kieran Padula.
Always Kieran's tough,
Kieran's such a strong guard.
Yep.
You definitely could tell he's a football guy. Like, he's a stud. He could play. He could easily play college basketball.
Yes.
I think he's probably going to go play football because it's probably going to be a higher school for him.
Yep.
But the kid is a gamer.
Yep.
I'd take that kid in any sport in a second.
Yep. His mental game in terms of his toughness and then being smart and playing position wise and doing his homework on the people he's playing. He's just you can't go wrong with Kieran. Kieran's a stud, no doubt.
But yeah, so he did good in the end. In the beginning of the game, it was a Brady handcuff for Edmond Memorial was an interesting matchup, him versus Jalen, because not many kids in Oklahoma have the size and speed and athleticism to kind of hang with Jalen. Mm-hmm. So he kind of made it tough in the first part of the game.
Yep.
But Jalen is such a great player that he's one of the toughest shot makers that you're ever going to see in the whole country. I don't care about just Oklahoma. I mean, the degree of difficulty on some of the shots. Now, a lot of times he's getting hit and he's getting pulled on. He's got somebody pulling on him down low, somebody hitting him high. Yesterday, they were definitely letting Memorial get away with some abuse on Jalen. I mean, he was taking his fair share of shots, but was hitting some high level stuff. Jax Kerr, we've been talking about him all season.
Difference maker
for them. They looked last night. We saw them at the TOC and we were like, they got to get contributions from those other guys. Yeah. They're playing like that right now. If that could be the collision course we want to see. We want the rematch. Mm-hmm. We want to see Edmond North and Owasso. We just want Owasso at their best. We want Owasso where their others are stepping up, and they're really doing that. Cody Lecklider was awesome yesterday, just attacking the rim. Just done. He plays with so much energy, and he's so athletic. He just does a lot of good things for them. And then on top of those guys, I mean, we always think Jalen and Jax, those are going to be their guys.
Yep.
Guys like MJ Milton, Shake Milton's little brother, he's been having a knack this season of hitting big time shots.
Yep.
Threes when they matter. So
those other guys stepping up make a huge difference with them.
Exactly. It will be those guys, MJ, Gabe Patterson, Cody Lecklider. Those guys will have to have a big game in the state to ever have a chance to beat Edmond North.
Yep.
It will have to happen. But I do like what I like about Owasso, and most people want to look at Jalen and say, you know, they're an offensive team. It's their defense that I love from them. They're very versatile.
They're very versatile. They got good guards that can play multiple positions, good length, toughness. You know, they're good athletes, right? They all the markings of a good defensive player. And then of course Brian obviously holding them accountable as the head coach. I think it's their singular focus on wanting to win a gold ball is going to make this really, really fun to watch down the stretch.
No, yeah, and then to Memorial, Hudson Franz, we talked about him.
Yeah, I really like his game. His off the bounce, you know, jump shooting, mid range game is really good.
Yeah,
he's quick. He's got a great first step, and you know he's the leader on that team. You mentioned it the last
and only
time.
A sophomore. I mean, he's one of those downhill guys where he's just constantly applying pressure,
which is a great point guard attribute.
Great point guards, what they do, and then they get to the line and get in your team in foul trouble with this new rule is key.
Yes,
you want to rack up a bunch of points anymore? Just get those 5 fouls. And you're gonna load up on points. So
yeah, I'm not a big fan of it, but I will say it's the rule, and you know what? The smart ones take advantage of it. I mean, my deal is what you're going to see, I think, in playoffs, and you're already seeing it a lot, but you're going to definitely see it that the reffing always tightens up when it gets to state playoffs.
Yeah.
And then when that tightens up, those free throws. So guys, you know, turnovers and free throws, you hear it all the time, but the teams that can shoot free throws, you don't want to foul them come playoff time because they're going to be at that line earlier than normal.
Yeah.
In most cases. And those physical teams that typically, you know, play physical type basketball and try to muck it up and get turnovers, it could turn, you know, on its head where they get success from that, but you know, in playoff time that could turn on you, you know, going to the free throw line, shooting free throws with no clock expiring, right? I mean that's extending leads, and you know it's going to be different. The teams that have strategy come playoff time and can play tough defense without fouling is going to be, you know, you're going to get some of those teams that are going to sneak up and beat people because of that.
Yeah, so Owasso remains undefeated in their district and they go into a primetime game
9-0.
Friday, they line up against Union. Who's right there.
I was just getting ready to say District 3, that's a big one. 16-2, 17-2 lining up. Owasso's 9-0 and Union's 9-1.
And I have to check the status. I know Big Eric Madrid got injured in a game recently, so I don't know if he's out or not. That will make
That's a huge impact.
That'll be a big impact. So I don't know if he's back already. I don't know. We'll find some more out about that. But that will come down. That's going to be a massive game.
Oh yeah, right now. If I were to look at it, looking at 6A, that's the biggest game going.
Yeah, and I mean, being that Owasso's already won once against them, this game is going to mean everything in that
rubber
district.
Match.
It is the rubber match. Should be top notch Friday night. So those are the games that we covered in person. Just some other storylines before we're going to kind of try to go through the 5A districts, kind of like we did last week. But some other storylines: Norman Tigers, 9 wins in a row.
Yeah, huge.
Coach Cole told me, don't. We want to be underdogs. Don't be on there. Don't be on there bumping us,
Coach. You can't avoid it, man. You guys, we've been watching you guys. I've been saying all year long that I thought you guys were a top 5 team, and I think it's certainly showing that. District 2, they're the top of District 2. I kind of had them pegged for that all year, and it's kind of slowly become the case.
Yep.
You know, we had Westmore that was kind of there for a bit, and then Norman took the crown and are kind of running with it, and they're hitting it, and they're just doing the right things. They're getting their role players to step up. We know the players that are going to, you know, make plays and score and control the tempo of the game, but they've got a number of other guys that are excuse me, you know, rebounding the basketball. I think one of the things I saw when I mentioned it during the last podcast against Westmore is, you know, Norman was able to dominate the boards. Westmore struggled. If, you know, Westmore's not out in transition, they sometimes will struggle to be consistent offensively. and rebounding. They don't have a whole lot of size. They're just loaded with guards, basically. Ivan's on the squad, but I would even say Ivan's not necessarily a true big. He'll come down and get block shots, and he'll do some things defensively, but he doesn't play. He's not going to bang with you down there on a regular basis. So, Norman is just kind of a tough matchup for Westmore, I think, but Norman is playing outstanding basketball, and I certainly am putting them right back.
Yeah, I was just going to say, with Westmore's lost a lot in last night, and then Norman beating Santa Fe, they've almost essentially, they're locking up that district.
Exactly.
I mean, it's looking that way. I mean, it's going to take something. I mean, that's the thing when you're going head to head and it's at the end like that. Those games matter more than anything.
Yeah, down the stretch, you got 5 games left, and the 2 through, and looking at District 2 and 6A real quick, and then we'll move on over to 5A. You've got in that world of District 2. Let me pull it up here real quick. If it ever pulls up.
Yeah, it seems like we're in the abyss here.
The 2 through 5 spots. So you've got basically Westmore down through Northwest Classen. That you've got Westmore, Lawton, Edmond Santa Fe, Putnam City West, and Northwest Classen. All of those teams are vying. So Westmore's 6-3 in district, and Northwest Classen's 5-4.
Yeah.
Now their overall records might be a little bit different than that, but the parity there amongst 2 through 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 actually, 2 through 6.
Yeah.
Any of them can jump up and be number 2 here down the stretch. So a lot of things can happen. There's 5 games left. We'll see who steps up in District 2, and because it's all about seeding and who plays, and I think District 2 plays District 1, and so it's all going to matter who gets that. If you get the 6th spot in District 2, you're likely going to be playing, what is it, Deer Creek, Piedmont at this point, one of those 2 schools. You don't want to play them first round, right?
No, although with the double elimination, that's where I don't like it. That's where I don't like it.
But even if you lose one, that's not good confidence going to the next game. Now, sure, I agree with you. I like the one and done. If you can't win like it used to be, you're out.
In the bigger classes, but I understand why they did it to take the coach's vote out.
Correct.
But
because people were not doing it the way that it was intended to do, and they were circumventing the process.
They were messing with the process. But when it comes to just playoff feel is like you want that March Madness feel. You want that. If you lose, it's over.
It matters. You want because
if you know you got a mulligan, it's not quite the same.
We get a second chance.
No one wants to lose, but you got another chance. So we'll jump into 5A and just kind of go through some of our top teams.
Let's do it.
Obviously, to me, District 1 is similar to District 1 and 6A. It's loaded.
Yeah.
It'd be the loaded one. Crossings Christian at number 1, and that at 13-4, 9-1 in that division. But because of last night,
El Reno,
big time win. That's a big time win.
Yeah.
And El Reno, Carter Romano's quietly having one of the best seasons out of anybody.
Been watching the kid since I think he was 8 or 9 years old. Had played I think. If my memory is correct, he played in the Mustang League back in the day.
Yeah.
And I had teams when my son was really young in that league, and it always came down to us and the El Reno team.
Yeah.
It was, our team versus them. That was the matchup we knew we were going to.
Yeah.
And those guys all play well. They're scrappy. They're smart. They're coached extremely well. And they want to win. They don't. It's not about who gets the most points.
No.
They are a team. And when you get to playoff time, and when you beat Crossings, going into playoff time, that's a pretty good indicator that you don't want to play them.
No. And with Carter, it's like, everybody knows I love my stat stuffers. Carter has been a stat stuffing machine. I mean, I think last night he had 18 and 12.
Yep.
I mean, and he's putting up near triple-double numbers on a lot of these nights, just having a monster season for him. And it's good to see because early on when he was younger, he was kind of highly touted.
Yep.
And then he kind of went away a little bit, and that happens a lot. And it seems like he's bounced back in his junior year, and he's really having a great season.
Yep.
I'm interested to see how I'm not even sure who he's playing for right now. I know he kind of played with the runners a little bit last year. It'll be interesting to see who he hops on with this summer. I'm sure a lot of teams would love to have him. He's having a monster season. But Guthrie's at 2. Guthrie we talked about them a number of times on this show. They're just
Yeah.
one of the grittiest teams, really good
Both
team.
9-1 Crossings and
Yeah.
Guthrie, both 9-1 in District 1.
And Carl Albert, before we counted them out, I just looked. They've won 11 out of 12 games.
Yeah, 7-2 in district, 14-4 overall.
I mean, 11 out of 12. Any way you slice it is good. So they lost. We talked about Mott leaving, but I told you, both Hopkins brothers are playing excellent.
Yeah.
And Quincy just reached 1,000 points. Congrats to Quincy Hopkins.
Yeah,
on
I
his
saw that
career.
this morning.
Yeah, congrats, man. And then Jaden Hopkins, to me, is just having his breakout season. He's going to be a superstar kid. So that's pretty much them. Shawnee, they're the last team in that. They're one of those dangerous teams where their record doesn't show it. They'll catch you on a if you're not ready to play Shawnee. They got some guys in Dayton Patton, like they got some point guard who's super speedy, fast kid. They got some guys that can really go. District 2, Midwest City. I mean, we talked about them numerous times now. They're 8-0 in district still.
Everybody healthy again?
I don't know if I'm sure Roy's back. I think he was just sick. I think he was just sick.
Yeah, the flu's been kind of rolling around here lately. Somewhere.
The interesting one is Del City.
Correct.
Because there's
Everybody
not
wrote
a
'em
person
off.
that had Del City pegged, and that's shout out to Coach Lenny Hatchett. I mean,
9-1.
when is Lenny
in
Hatchett's team ever not good? I mean, literally, go back however many years back. I remember he was at Edmond Santa Fe at one time.
He's a great coach, a great leader. I mean, he's gonna be competitive no matter who he has on his squad. He's gonna get those guys to play hard for him, and year in and year out, man. There's a reason why Del City's dominated 5A for and before that 4A, and I mean, it's just he's a staple in high school basketball. I mean, the guy's outstanding.
And then in that district, just the other one that has a winning record, and that's 8-2 in district is Lawton MacArthur.
Yeah.
And we talked about, I briefly touched on them.
Yeah.
Brennan Malone in the sophomore class is a certified stud. He is. I feel like if people don't know him this spring and summer, I believe he will be running with Team Trey Young. That kid is special. He's 6'7".
Yep.
I've already told people he's one of the most instinctual defensive guys I've seen in a long time.
At 6'7".
Yeah, shot blocking, quick jumper. Just can finish around the rim.
They've been flying under the radar all year in 5A. That's a team right there
that's one that no one's going to want to play.
No,
and they got a couple guards, TK Taylor. They got some young. They're what it is that they're young. They're just very young.
Yep.
So they are a team in 5A. Next year, if they can continue to keep, and we have to say this is a caveat on any team. After July of this year, is any team going to be the same? Is any team going to be the same?
Yeah, we're gonna see super teams in high school. Yeah. The next thing you know, we're gonna have NIL deals and everything else. Who knows?
Yeah,
I do think that eventually NIL is going to come to high school a lot more prevalently than it is right now.
Somebody brought up something to me about last week. I had mentioned that Owasso was going to the Palm the Classic.
Yes.
I can't it left my mind, but and saying that I was saying something about after July. Yeah, I was simply stating that after July, any of these teams can bring it. It's not against the rules.
Nope.
That's not recruiting. There's nothing wrong with that. That's the rule that we got now.
Yep.
So now you live with what the rule is. It's everybody's going to do it.
I think you'll see some of it. I don't know that you'll see a lot of it because parents are, pretty much like, hey, look, kids are probably more interested in playing with their friends and trying to get on certain teams than the parents are like, no, I've got a house and a mortgage. We're staying here.
Yeah.
So, I'm not going to. But it's going to be interesting. You'll see some of it. It'll be interesting. And next year, I think we'll probably do a preseason takeoff of what it's going to look like maybe for next year.
The trade deadline special or something like that. Yeah,
we're gonna have some interesting discussions around that. That would honestly having a show about just some of the rules and some of the things like that, the ancillary things. It might not be a bad idea just to have a show about that on its own.
No, I think you can absolutely have an entire series on something like that. So I think that takes us to District 4. And
well, did you talk about District 3, Booker T? Obviously,
okay, that's District 3.
8-0.
No, my bad. Yeah, no, that's the one I was going to.
They've dominated that District 3. Collinsville's 13-3 and 7-2 in the win-loss record for District 3, and then it starts to Tahlequah 7-2. and then you get 5 and 3 from Bishop Kelly, and then everything starts to sub 500 with East Central, and then Claremore Grove and Pryor. So you've got Booker T, Collinsville, and Tahlequah. And Bishop McKelly, those are all above 500 or significantly, and everybody else falls.
And when you said Booker T, we were talking about winning games in a row. I'm just looking; they've won 11 in a row.
Yes,
I mean, so they're about as hot as any team in the state right now.
Yeah, they're going to be. That team is either going to just mop the floor with people, I don't know. I don't want to play Booker T if I'm in 5A. I just don't want to play him until I have to.
It might be a team that Booker T might be a team that you see in the Tournament of Champions.
This is correct.
Year. They might just be in it next year. Whatever you want to read.
We
read between the lines.
You're forecasting and all there?
Yeah. Read between the lines if you want. But yeah, 11 in a row, and then you look at their schedule and go, that game, I mean, that game at Collinsville is going to be huge here in a week. They play Tahlequah twice, so they've got the teams that are right in the mix with them. They've got them all on the back end of their schedule. And when you touched on Collinsville, that's because Zach Brown. They literally have a true big. A big that can put his back to the basket.
And get points.
Get buckets, rebounds, sets devastating, real mannish screens, in the words of our man, Coach Rowe. Mannish.
Mannish.
Shout out to my guy,
Coach Rowe.
Yeah, always shout out to Coach Rowe. He's a true big, but he's soft touch and can shoot. So that's what I like about Zach. And he's going to be special down there at Missouri S&T. They got a steal with him. I love him. So, yeah, I mean, District 3, Booker T obviously in that, but they play Tahlequah twice. And Tahlequah wins both games. Anything can happen, man. That's up in the air. So shout out to Booker T though and Coach Eli Brown, because he's another one. We talk about Coach Hatchett.
Great coach.
It seems like Booker T is always at the top. I mean, it doesn't matter. And when they graduated Aaron Potter and Cam Parker, or we want to go back to Bryce Thompson, people thought, they're going to have a down year, and they never do. Just doesn't seem to ever happen.
They reload. Kids want to play at Booker T. They have a tradition of having great basketball.
Yeah, that's one of those programs where it's the school name, the logo, the colors. It means something.
Yeah, you put that uniform on, it matters.
Having a good coach, and then them being like guard you, where they get all the good guards. That's where, if you're a good guard, you want to go. I mean, we already talked about their freshman phenom, Jock Mitchell. They've got so many guys. Isaac Sanders. They've got Jamari Simpson, B.J. Harris.
Yeah, I was going to say Jamari Simpson.
Mason Matulis. They're loaded. They're loaded at the guard. I mean, they're going to be scary for anybody in 5A. As gritty and hard as they play, and the guards that could all go off at the same time. Just think, Dallas Lowe was originally going there before he moved to Cash Hall. So, I mean, that's scary in a sense too. But that's District 3. District 4, Holland Hall. Our man Teddy Owens, shout out Teddy.
Doing a great job. We watched him a week or so ago back at the
Bruce Gray Invitational. And they're without second best player Julius Wilson is out with an ankle sprain right now, and they're
so when is he coming back? Before
he'll be back. He should be back pretty soon,
because he has a whole new dimension to them where it's a lot more difficult. I know they matched up with Deer Creek and were giving them fits the first basically 98% of that game, and then Deer Creek decided, okay, now we're going to go and flip the switch. And play.
And Julius is 6'3.5".
Yeah,
I mean, physical, athletic. He's one of the top kids in the 2026 class, and it allows Carter Benton to play more into the role he needs to be in. So they need him.
They were face guarding Carter and really putting focus on Carter, so they made it difficult on him. And I think down the stretch that really it started to wear on him physically, and then knocking down shots, it was difficult.
And I know the kid that surprised that impressed us from them was the point guard, the Ryan Levine kid. He played really well, and then as well as Ethan Tabor's playing well for them down low. So. They look like a well-balanced team, but they need Julius back ASAP.
Yeah, they have to have him back, because otherwise I think when they get into those upper echelon teams within 5A, you've got to have all your pieces and everybody playing at a high level, because the other teams, the Booker T's, the Midwest Cities, all the teams we talked about, the
Yep.
Carl Alberts, the Crossings, Guthrie, all those teams are playing high-level basketball. You got to have all your studs out there.
And then the next team was a team I was going to bring up anyways, is Tulsa Edison.
Yes.
They're playing really well right now. Really well.
And they have one of the best defensive players in the entire state of Oklahoma. He is a stud.
Every Division II school in Oklahoma should be tapping into Jeremiah Johnson.
Jeremiah Johnson's a stud, and I can't say enough about the kid. He is. If I'm putting a team together, if I'm a college coach and I'm putting a team together, I am putting him on there. He's one of the first guys in the entire state that I put on in the 2024 class. I don't even, you can name a lot of guys.
Yeah.
And he's going to be one of the best defensive players I've seen in a long time.
He's in my nickname, he's the glove 2.0.
Oh, yeah, man.
If Gary Payton was the glove, he's
him.
the way he plays and in the passing lanes and in his on-ball pressure and the steals he gets every game. He's probably up in the top. If he's not leading 5A, I guarantee you he's at the top of steals.
Yeah,
per
he's
game.
amazing. He's amazing. I that's the word I use for him. I think he's an amazing player, and on top of that, he's a great kid. Got a great family. He does great in school. I mean, he's just awesome. Great teammate.
And
too.
I believe they're Holland Hall's only loss in district, right?
That's correct.
And that's just recently.
Yep.
They're playing out of their mind, so it's nice to see. And they've got some other guys. Senior Moses Miller that's been playing big for them. They got a junior Donald Jackson that's been good, and then they got a couple freshmen, and I've shouted him out a few times. DeAndre Rhodes is going to be a special player in the future in Oklahoma from Tulsa Edison. Just mark that name down.
Noted.
Let me set the crystal ball out here on the
that's
center
what
of the table.
We need the old Flagrant 2 crystal ball.
Yeah, I'm telling you, DeAndre Rhodes is definitely going to be a guy that everybody knows about here pretty soon. So,
Good stuff.
They're a team that you definitely don't want to play. And then you have Sapulpa, Tulsa Memorial.
Yep.
Tulsa Memorial, they've been kind of up and down the last week or two. They've been taking some losses that I didn't expect from them.
Yeah.
But they got a guy in Jaleel Cotton, a junior, who's putting up stats like 28 points and 19 rebounds left and right. So he's a
They lost to Edison and then Will Rogers. So Will Rogers beat him by 11, and then Edison put the works to him by 22 points.
Yeah, Edison's playing really well right now.
Yes, they are.
Very well. So, that's pretty much the 5A, breakdown of the top teams that we like right now that are, at the top of their districts. I'd say just, looking around the whole landscape of everything, last night, an interesting game to me was how close Norman North played Edmond North. You see that?
Yes. The last couple games that North has played, and I'm not sure. I haven't watched them play, so that this is I'm speculating here, but when I look at Edmond North, they've played a couple games in a row here where it's been tight, 47-43 against Norman North, 59-52 against Deer Creek. And Deer Creek has that potential to always jump up and play outstanding basketball when they're motivated.
Yeah.
And then of course, they played in a tournament, outside of Oklahoma, which I'm not even going to get into that because they played high level competition.
The number one kid in the country as of last week that they played against.
So and they were extremely competitive in those games. So I don't that's a waste of time even talk about. They're easily the best 6A team. Yeah. But it is interesting how teams are preparing for them and playing tight games. So that's kind of an interesting dynamic. They're getting ready to play at Mustang on I believe Friday. So they'll play at Mustang and then they'll play at home Putnam City North, at home Capitol Hill, at home
which I saw. I was at the first Mustang Edmond North game, and I really would like. I might be interested. What day was that again?
On Friday the 2nd.
I think I'm about to tell you why I'm about to be at the game. I'm about to be at the end on that day here in a second. But I wanted to go watch Tyson Pogai against them the first game, and he held his own. I'm interested to see how he plays them now because I think as we know, you're no longer a freshman now at this point of the game, at the season. You've had your teeth have been cut. You are ready to go at this point. So
that'll be a fun game to watch. I mean, I think there's a lot of talent on the floor, so that's a game that I think would be for those out there trying to find a good high school game to go watch. Edmond North and Mustang at Mustang, at 7:30 on February 2nd would be great. So.
Just shooting around. I mean, Southmore picked up a big win against Bixby last night, and Bixby had been playing well. We talked about them. We also talked about Southmore. So it's like I said, this podcast, when you get talked about it, usually it foreshadows something good happening pretty soon after. These guys seem to it's like they tune in and then they play well off of what we talk about.
Choctaw beat Broken Arrow. That's another game that
BA's dropped a couple lately. They dropped a few games in the last week or so.
They beat Broken Arrow. It was an overtime, so it was a really competitive game, and they're the top two in District 4. So 55-53, but they've struggled a little bit. Choctaw's been kind of, I don't want to say struggled. They've won 3 out of their last 4, but it was an overtime. They're playing Stillwater, Jinx, and Broken Arrow the last 3. Beat Southmore. Southmore is a team, I'm going to tell you right now, you mentioned it on the last podcast I recall.
Yeah, we did.
That is a team in the next year or two, if that team stays together, is going to be very, very good.
Yeah, no, they're loaded.
I mean, and it may be next year.
Yeah.
That's a team
if they could get a big guy to move in, they would be scary.
Yeah, that's when Owasso becomes part of the bullseye for them. I mean, that's the team that has a lot of pieces that.
Yeah,
man, I'm impressed with that group.
I mean, they're going to lose Ledbetter, who's been a big piece of them for the last 4 years. But outside of him, they're bringing back the entire team for the next 2-3 years.
Exactly. So I just feel like Ledbetter's been like instant offense.
He was last night too.
Yeah, and he can score the basketball. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Good athleticism.
Yeah,
I think the thing with Jesse is the playing without the ball has always been Jesse's, what does he do or how does he manage that?
Yeah.
And so, but I think with the emergence of some of the other guys, Jesse's, he's shown maturity and playing a little bit differently.
Yeah.
And if he continues to do that, certainly big things are ahead. But Southmore is a fun team to watch.
And we talked about them last week. We said that they were coming up, and they are. And the thing about them, what I like is that those freshmen are getting a ton of minutes.
Yeah.
So you're throwing them to the fire, and they're learning. They're getting their on the job training right now.
And they got a great staff too there at Southmore. So it's fun to see. I mean, we talked about it in the last podcast. They were undersized last year. This year they've got some good size. They still could use, like you say, a legitimate big. If you could do that, you could put everybody in their spots, and they'd be really tough to beat. I mean, if you could insert a 6'7", 6'8" kid into Southmore's lineup that could play with his back to the basket, and you've got Jesse, and you've got all these players that can flat out, that would be. That'd be almost like the few years back when they couldn't play for the state title when they had all those guys when they were expected to win 6A.
Yeah.
When COVID came in.
Yeah, they were loaded.
Yeah. So they were robbed.
Yep. Well, they look like they got their new team that they're building on. You're right. They're going to be one of the teams in the future.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to watch.
So you want to hop to our sponsor, and then we'll hit on that OSSA breaking news.
Yeah, we'll do that. As we always talk, Nate Logan of Logan Elite Basketball. Nate does a great job training out of Destiny Christian High School in Del City. He provides an affordable group and individual training options every week. Logan Elite Training aims to help players develop their skill sets, basketball IQ, confidence, and ultimately help them become more prepared for their current teams, as well as for the next level. Logan Elite currently trains some of the best high school and junior high players in the state of Oklahoma. Visit LoganEliteBasketball.com or message Logan on Instagram at @NateLogan_Logan Elite for more information on how to get signed up for training. And I'll just say this to everybody: shout out to Logan or Nate. If you don't have a trainer, you got to get with Nate. Nate's one of the best. There's a bunch of good ones, and we talk about this every week.
Yep.
depending on where you live and you know all that. But Nate's definitely up there. You know, he's one of the top tier, and he sponsors the show, and we love Nate, so we want to make sure that anybody that's looking for a trainer, he's not only going to drill you the right way, but he's going to explain to you why and give you all the angles, and he's just a great teacher. So shout out to Nate.
Yeah, shout out to Nate for sure. Smart, very smart of him to get in early with the Flagrant 2 podcast.
Yes, sir.
It is going to pay off for him big time.
Yep.
And we appreciate you, Nate. And speaking of that, we're always actively seeking sponsors and donations to the podcast. We talk about it every week.
Yep.
If you're interested in doing that and becoming a sponsor and helping elevate your business, reach out to me or Coach Barber. Send us a direct message. If you have our number, hit us up and let us know, and we'll get you lined up and figure out something that can work for you guys and help your business grow. So we definitely love all the support that we're receiving. Is crazy.
If you can get in touch with us over the next couple weeks, I think we might even be able to cut you a deal over what we normally do. So get in with us. Timing is good because as we all know, if you get in early, you get a better deal.
Yeah.
So
just know that the podcast stock is elevated.
It is elevated.
Just know that much about it. But yeah, and back to what I was saying before we went to that, the OSSA breaking news as it comes down in a 4-1 vote that Jaden Nickens has been cleared to play for the Douglas Trojans.
Look out for a.
Yeah, I was about to get my hashtag free JNick shirt on because it was getting to that point. I was going to have to make a thing that, hey, let's let him go at this point. Let him go, let him play. He's been there. He did whatever he had to do. Let's let him go. And now,
so he's open to play this next game.
I will be there Friday night as Douglas takes on Victory Christian. I mean, could we ask for a better matchup?
Oh man, that's perfect.
That's going to be special. He's ready to go, and he's hopefully there. It's scary now because now the 4A has been just tumbled up. I mean, Douglas was already at the top.
Yeah.
Near the top. Well, I mean, I told you I might have had him over Weatherford before that at this current moment. But Weatherford, you just never want to count them out. They've got experience and size and all that. But Nickens with Douglas, now that it's official, is scary.
Yeah, that's going to be – I mean, the only problem they're going to have is, how do you – everybody comes back, everybody's healthy, everybody's kind of – is how that everything's going to be shared. It's a team dynamic. But you got 5 games. You got 5 games to figure it out. I trust that they'll figure that out. And I think if they're not the favorite to win, 4A, I don't know who is.
They would be.
But I don't think they're.
They would be a team to me that with that lineup that could play in any. Yeah. I mean, in 6, even Edmond North size, it would be hard to go against that dynamic when you're talking about Landry Ballard, Devon Scott, Jaden Williams, Jaden Nickens. I mean, that you're talking about guards,
good athletes,
and then not to mention the other guys that they have. I mean, they're loaded.
Yeah, I'm still taking Warlick though, dude. I'm not putting anybody above that dude. Come on, but no, they can compete in any class.
Well, we could have the real tournament of champions if we would let some OKC public schools into there. I mean, are we ready for that conversation?
Oh man, because
I'd love to see.
We're opening up a can here.
I'd love to see Douglas going into the TOC.
Heck yeah, they should have been. I mean, that's what the tournament of champions is all about. Why? I didn't understand why they weren't invited to that either. I mean, come on, they won 4A, and arguably one of the toughest classes last year.
Yeah,
and they're not in tournament champions. I mean, who's making those decisions?
It's just it's TPS and I guess Oklahoma City Public Schools.
It's called politics, folks.
We got to look at next year, whatever the rule is, whatever. And I think they've already got the teams picked for next year, so it's not them.
You alluded to it earlier.
I may or may not have said a team that's in it, but I'm very interested in watching Douglas and how they mesh together.
Yeah.
Obviously he was able to practice, so
I don't think it'll be a problem. I'm just saying 5 games, they'll be fine. I mean, it's just going to be, everybody that wasn't healthy gets back healthy and then makes a run. I certainly feel like Douglas is a favorite. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
And before we go, like we always do, we want to say thank you to all of the people that have reached out to us, sent us messages telling us how great this podcast is, all the stuff on social media that you're tagging us in, tweeting us in. to the parents, to the kids. We see it. We love it. We do this for the kids. Number one, it's for exposure of your kid. We really do appreciate everything that you guys are saying, and we read it all. We read all the messages. We try to respond back to every single person. We see it and we love it, and we want to continue to keep doing this. I would just say, as always, stay tuned. Flagrant 2 merch is coming. Okie Ball merch is already out. Okieball.net. Shameless plug.
Yeah, there you go.
Get you a hoodie, shirt, whatever you want.
I want to say this too: is before we get out of here, I want to give a shout out to Jackson Zerby on our where we do our podcast. He's behind the scenes doing our stuff every week. And provides just the best studio there is for podcasting. I mean, he's got the best gear. He's got everything. So shout out to him. Those of you out there that are looking to do podcasting, check out Studio 7725 and hook up with Jackson. It's a great studio. He does great work, and I'll make sure that we shout him out more often, because it's, because of the studio we get to put out great product for you guys.
He's the man behind the mics and the camera that you don't see, but he helps operate this thing and keeps it going. So we always appreciate Jackson. And so stay tuned. I think we're trying to get a guest lined up next week, a special guest. We really want him, so we're looking forward to getting him in. And looking forward to getting a lot more guests as we go along. But as always, we've got so much to talk about every week. It's hard for us not to continue to talk.
And then state tournaments coming up, man. This is like the mecca of basketball.
We'll have to do something special for that. We'll figure out what we're going to do, because there's going to be so many ways we could take that. My only one thing that I've always said about that is why they have the games at the same time on the same day.
Yeah, I don't understand it either.
You cannot be at 3A and 4A and 5A and 6A because they're at the same time and they're at a totally different city.
I
mean, 30 minutes away, but you can't make it when they're at the same time. I wish they would at least offset them far enough to where...
So you could go to all of them. I mean, a lot of people that love basketball want to see, they want to watch 3A, 4A, and then they want to watch 5A and 6A. I mean, come on. What's so hard about that?
Yeah, because I remember last year I had to leave... I watched up until the semifinals, and then 5A and 6A. It was either choose that or go watch.
Same with me.
Dale or Douglas, and Douglas Weatherford. I wasn't missing.
Yeah, I went to that. I went to Douglas.
So
Weatherford
I ended up going to the Big House and missed the 6A championship game, which I had been at the 6A all the way up until that.
Yeah.
And it's like they're forcing you to choose. Well, what that does is the media. In Oklahoma, we don't have enough to do that. We need to have the most coverage we possibly can.
So what they need to do is hire my wife to do it. She'll organize that thing. I guarantee you.
All set up.
Get it all set up. She'll figure it all out, get all the angles and what ifs and all that. Trust me.
But no, we're looking forward to tournament season and really all the episodes we're going to bring you to that. We love the support. We appreciate the support. And peace, Oklahoma. Thank you.
Out.